like they can't help the city because they don't have the ability. And because the city's economic is failing, so we believe that it's not only their economic that is failing, but also maybe their population or their infrastructure is also failing. Because if you don't have money and because your economic is failing, we believe that, like for example, the crime rate will go up or something like that. Okay, so starting with my arguments. My first argument is because it is better for the cities. So because the economically failing cities, their economic is very bad, and because they need help. But because like if the country has the ability to help them, then they won't let them just fail, right? So that we believe that this country doesn't have the ability to help. So that means that only if we need someone else or like a company to help them. So, and I will explain why companies are better in my next argument. But firstly, but also because they really need this, because if they just don't have another person or another company or another like institution or something like that to help them, then they will just like go worse and worse, and it's not for the cities and it's not for also the people there. So now I'll tell you my second argument, which is like why the companies are better for them. So firstly, because companies, the companies, they need profit, right? So if they want profit, that means that like they will do good things for the people in that city because they need to have money and they want people, other companies or other people to invest in this city. So that makes this city's economic better, which helps them from economically failing worse. And that is better for the city because then they can have like better infrastructure and things like that. And secondly, we believe that the company, because they need reputation, there are companies, so they want people to go buy their things, or they want people to have a good reputation about them. So that means that if people know that this city is bought by the companies as a charter city, that means that that city like people like will think that this city is people know that this city is bought by the company, so they will think how the city will affect how they think about the company. So that means that if companies do something bad, or like they treat the people bad in that city, other people will know, and they won't be happy because it's just not, it's morally incorrect and it's very bad. So like other people in the world will not like that company, and that is very bad for the company because the company wants to get money from it wants to get profit, right? So because it's the main thing why companies exist. And also because companies, they are doing like economic things because they are selling things, and so that is very important for especially economically failing cities, because they know how to save their economic, because they are just working about that, and they have a lot of experts about that, so they know how to make this city better for investment, and they know how to bring up the city's economic. And also because like this company, because like this city, they need investments, and the companies also want like investments from other companies so that they can have more profit from this city. And that is why they will want to buy the cities that are economically failing. So that means that they can fit very well together because like they can all fit both of their needs, and that is very good for the city, and also the company, and also good for like their whole country, because like they can have like less way or like less pressure from that city like needing to save them. So because of all these reasons, I'm proud to propose.
Okay, thank the Prime Minister for that speech. Moving on to the Leader of Opposition.
So I would like to begin my speech in 3, 2, 1. So I would like to start by relating to what the propositions I mentioned. So then I think that their whole speech was basically about how it's good for like the city because they're already failing, so the companies can like help with their economy, making the cities more economically stable. But and also about how the companies are like driven by profit and reputation, so they're gonna do good things for the people. But companies can remain their reputation by like not by being corrupt or by like doing bad things, and I'll explain that further more in my speech. And now I'd like to begin my argument. So the first one is wrong motives. So the companies have bad motives because they can deliberately, since they're driven by profit, they can deliberately try to fail a city to buy it, and they would also, when buying the cities, they would also fulfill the company's like own interest, and instead of the citizens' interest, which is the actual thing that they need to fulfill. And I'm gonna explain why buying these like economically failing cities is beneficial to the companies. So it's beneficial because then they can make their own rules, and it's like very hard for they can like they basically get free labor, right? And they can give like citizens minimum wage. So basically they're taking like advantage of the citizens, and for example like. And they don't have like the obligation to like care for the citizens, right? Because they're driven by profit and reputation, so they want to remain their own reputation, but also like get benefits for themselves. So they basically have no obligation to care for the citizens, which is why on the proposition side, that argument does not work because the company doesn't have to do good things for the citizens.
Pure.
No. And then also, for example, like when digging for like oil, they need like the citizens like approval, but they might just bulldoze over it, and companies don't have to get like the citizens approval because they own the cities. So they don't have to like care about what the citizens actually want, and they're basically eluding illegal behavior around the citizens, and so the citizens would live in fear. And that also leads me to my second argument, which is no social development, because the company like they're basically doing whatever they want, right? Because they have no obligation to care for the citizens, meaning that nobody's gonna tell them that what they're doing is wrong, which means that their society will never change, leading to no development and no improvement in the societies, which is not doing anything good for the cities, which is why we don't think that these companies should have the right to like govern or buy the cities. And we believe that like there's also lack of like checks and balances, and because there's like lack of representation from the citizens because they don't get to decide anything, and they don't get like basically they don't get any rights, and no one is stopping the companies from going rogue and corrupt. And we believe that the citizens are not allowed to speak up, and we also think that like many people can't move to other places either because their city was already failing. So which means that a lot of people were actually in poverty and they're really poor, so they don't have the money to move to other places, meaning that they're basically stuck in this like situation and they can't escape. And there's gonna be no checks and balances because even if like the country's like law holds power as well, because their city was already failing. buy the city, the companies also need to persuade the government, right? So the company could basically bribe the government, meaning that the government also like is with like the company, so the government also then has no obligation to fulfill the citizens' needs. And also we would provide like a counter model. So our solution to this issue is that the government can like give funding, and the government can provide like a program project. And I'm gonna explain what the program project looks like. So there's clear guidelines that will allow the government to follow like step-by-step plans on a specific timeline to like rebuild the city. And an example is like in Dubai. Dubai went from like a desert to a global economic city, proving that this solution is the best way to save a failing city without a company buying it. So for all of these reasons above, we are so proud to oppose. Thank you.
Okay, we thank the Leader of Opposition for that speech. Moving on to the Deputy Prime Minister.
My speech starts in 3. Before I move on to my extensions, I first want to give out some rebuttals to the opposition side. So firstly, they talked about how the companies are likely to not care about the interests of people, and then therefore these people do not have any right, like they are just being like tortured and like having something like being seen as like slaves or what. But I think that this situation doesn't happen, and our first speaker already told you why. It's because the interest of the companies is like to get profit, and I'll explain this later on. But secondly, they told us how citizens will live in fear. And then this is also the reputation part my first speaker already talked about. And thirdly, I want to give an example. Like, for example, like Russia invading Ukraine. It is kind of like this situation, right? Because like Russia is invading Ukraine, which means that they are doing something that globally isn't accepted by the global, right? So in this situation, Russia is like kind of being suppressed by other countries. But companies in this situation, companies, they care about money, so they do not want to get suppressed in the money part. So they still won't do two things that are too bad because of their reputation part. Okay, and there's I also talked about
POI.
yes.
In Russia, you can see clear actions that the Russians are taking to invade Ukraine. These companies are big, powerful corporations that can mask their reputation and make sure that their reputation is gentrified for the rest of the world to see.
I don't quite understand your POI, but I think it means that you are saying that these companies are really strong, so they still do not have to care about reputation too much. But I will explain that later. But first on, I will keep talking about what the opposition side give as a rebuttal. So they talk about how companies can also have reputation even without caring about people. And then they said that they will explain it later in their argument, and I didn't hear the explanation. And then secondly, they talked about how taking advantage from people is not really good. But just think about it. It's a comparison between the past and now, right? So in the past, they do not have any money. They are just living in a place that is really poor and like don't have any infrastructure. Then right now it's better because you at least have money. You at least can make yourself like live for like some days, right? So it's actually better because originally you might die eventually because you did not have money to buy food and you cannot have any infrastructure or like medical resources, right? But right now you have these things, right? It's actually better because it just makes you alive. Like living is probably the most important thing right now. So I think the goal that both sides want to achieve is that making this place better, right? Although I hope to see the opposition side provide a reason on either why these cities can heal themselves or why there is a better way to help these cities instead of giving these companies a chance to buy these cities as charter cities. And later on, they talked about how to make the companies will make the cities fail and then like make the cities into a worse place. But this place is already a worse place, and these countries are buying them on charter cities, which means that they want to gain investment from other companies or other countries, right? So if they want investment, they mustn't make this place a too bad place, right? So this is why that these companies will not make this place even worse. So I think there are mainly two burdens that our sides need to prove is that why these countries can heal themselves and the character analysis of these companies. Like why are these companies likely going to like make some infrastructure or make this place a better place? So firstly about why these countries or no, why these cities cannot heal themselves and why their country wouldn't help them. Because you see this place is already failing. No matter in like developed countries or developing countries, they do not gain help from the government, which is why they do not have economically, they do not have a better economic rate. And that is a reason, and the reason of having an economically fail is because that the governments do not have the ability to help them, or else they wouldn't become an economically failing city at the first place. Which means that it is actually hard for them to heal themselves, and the best and the most efficient and the best way to help themselves is actually to gain help from others. It's not likely for them to heal themselves at a short time, and then you're just sacrificing some lives because they do not get money. They do not have these like daily needs like food or water at the same time, right? And secondly, I want to kind of like extend on my first speaker argument. My first speaker talked about how this is actually good for cities and did a character analysis on the company, but I don't think the opposition quite understand about this part, so I'll repeat it again. So the point is that these companies, they are profit driven, which means that they need to gain profit from these places or that they wouldn't spend money to buy these cities, right? So if they want to get profit, it means that they cannot do things that are too bad to the citizens, right? So other countries are willing to invest into here. And also, these are companies. They are yes.
Why would you need other countries to invest in the city if the company already bought it itself? And wouldn't profit? The quickest way to gain profit is by doing illegal activities and badly.
So firstly, about an investment part, the motion clearly say that charter cities are mainly bought for like getting investment from other countries. It's like being like making this city into like a place that can like earn money, right? So, and the second part about how, I didn't understand the second part. But anyways, I think it's quite about like some charter cities like having like some, I still don't get it. But companies, they are not only profit driven because of the point that they want investment, also because that these companies need to earn money. They earn money by making their company better, right? So for example, a company that is selling things, they cannot make their reputation too bad or else people will criticize them and people will not want to buy their things, which makes them have no money, which is also included in the profit driven part. And secondly, how is this profit driven beneficial to these citizens, right? Because they want everyone to see them as a company that is okay to like have their have their things and then like to get things from them, right? They want to earn money. So which is why I'm really proud to propose.
Okay. We thank the Deputy Prime Minister for that speech. Moving on to the Deputy Leader of Opposition.
Judges, are you ready?
Okay, then my speech will start in 3, 2, 1. The most important thing in this debate is societal growth, economic growth, and the well-being of citizens who are going to be living in these charter cities. We think that on opposition side, we're the only side of the house that is able to ensure well-being and no corruption for the citizens. On government, they want to help improve the city's infrastructure and success, when the very plan of allowing companies to buy out these cities lead to its downfall. When reputation no longer matters for these companies, it becomes a dangerous place for citizens to live in. I think both sides of the house can agree to that. So as long as we're able to prove why these companies would not want to care about their reputations, which is like their main core argument, I think that we are able to win this debate. So first, I would like to start with some rebuttals, and then I'll prove why companies are the worst actor to actually buy out these charter cities to improve the city's economy and how it actually leads to its downfall. So first, starting with some rebuttals, they tell us that the city is poor and that its economy is struggling. We tell you that this is exactly why they're vulnerable of being taken advantage of by companies. Them struggling doesn't mean that they need help from companies who are just going to take advantage of them. We already provide you with a model how we tell you that the government has an obligation to take responsibility, right? So our model is how the government will invest even more funding and infrastructure into the city. There will be clear timelines and clear guidelines in order to actually improve the city.
POI.
Yes.
If the government has the obligation to do this and they do care about this place, why would this place economically fail?
We told you that this is like this place failing is an outcome of the government not spending enough attention and money into this, right? Which is why our model shows that we're going to help invest in this city later. So they talk about companies caring about reputation and how they want to maintain a good appearance. First, as they've correctly identified, these companies are driven by profit. They'll do whatever it takes in order to earn money. And even if they do maintain a good appearance, on the outside, corruption and exploitation can still happen within the city. Things such as ignoring pollution limits or not properly prosecuting illegal things that companies do are all just many of the examples that will happen under the covers. But second, we told you that other companies wouldn't really care that much about the company's image, because the reason why companies care about appearance in the first place is because of the law, right? It's because if they have a bad reputation, then they're more likely to be doubted and more likely to be prosecuted by the law. But when the legal and administrative system in this city is all made by the companies, that means that there are no checks and balances, there's no judge, there's no jury that is able to correctly prosecute these criminals. And when there's literally no legal system in a charter city anymore, we tell that the companies are able to just run around and do whatever they want. Third, we already told you in a POI that companies can mask things when they're large and powerful. We think that a company that is able to buy out a poor city is probably very powerful, right? They have a lot of money, they have a lot of resources, they have a lot of connections that they're able to use to their own advantage. We tell you that they can either cover up all this corruption or they just do it under the curtain and just secretly oppress the citizens. So why are companies the worst actors to help citizens? We tell you first, because they have impure motives. Second, there are no checks and balances. And third, it's not true that other companies won't invest in them. Because even when we clearly know, for example, child labor is happening in China, in Africa, in a lot of the third world countries. But still, there are still so many big brand names in the world that are still using their workers because of the cheap labor. We tell you that in the end, these big companies are either able to mask the corruption that is happening, or they just simply don't care about their reputation at all because people still need to buy their products, right? So we tell you just the examples of people still using child labor workers in China and Africa. Companies are driven by profit. They don't really stop at anything just in order to gain money. Yes?
Okay, so how do you make sure that in your side government will do so much thing, it can just help this state to become better?
We tell you that we already have a model, right? And even if in our model, our trade-off is time, right? We probably are not able to rebuild the city very fast, but we tell you that this is still justified. And this is better for the long term. This is more sustainable in the long term. Why? First, because there's no corruption. The government actually has the citizens' best interest by heart because they're chosen by elections, right? If citizens see that their leader is not having the policies, not having the administrative system that they want, then obviously they're not going to vote for them. But for these companies, when they buy out the city, it's like you're automatically mayor, right? You can do whatever you want. As stated in the motion, they have their own legal and administrative systems, meaning that they basically make the rules of this city, right? We tell you the reason why government has the obligation. Yes.
I didn't hear a model in your speech. Can you explain what is your model?
I already said it in my rebuttals, but we are going to have a model of how the government will invest more funding into the cities and infrastructure. We're going to gradually build the city up, even if it takes many years, even if it takes longer than this, like, the kind of like illusion that your side gives. Judge, we tell you that on government side, the illusion that they give is somehow the companies will not care about their reputation, which we already told you why they will not care about their reputation, but also they think that they'll somehow improve the city's economy because the company is driven by profit. What in reality happens is that they exploit the citizens. They ignore the citizens' wants and demands, and they just bulldoze their way through everything. As our first speaker has mentioned, an example is how they don't need to get the citizens they don't have to get the citizens' approval for projects such as like drilling for oil. We tell you that when the government allows these companies to buy out the city, it becomes the government's fault when these citizens are being oppressed, when the citizens are being abused. So as a just and fair government, we think that we're the only bench in this debate that is able to provide fairness, that is able to provide development, even if at a slow pace, but a stable development. Thank you.
Okay, we thank the Deputy Leader of Opposition for that speech. Moving on to the government vote.
So there's, I say, they will still make the state better, but just in a slow pace. But now, ours will tell you, no. What will happen in your side is they will remain failing, and nothing will happen compared to our side. It's not perfect. It's not so free and something, but at least we'll gradually become better. And actually, your side is saying how companies don't care about reputation because what they care about is law. But no, that's not the case. Why would they care about what's morally correct? It's actually because how does a company work? If they want to work, they need reputation. Why would they need reputation? Because they need the customers to like. They need customers to buy their things, to buy their products. If they don't have those customers, how can the company even stand in the first place? So, as long as we can still prove to you how reputation is also important, and at least we can have some kind of development, and yours can actually have the zero development, then we can win this debate. So, firstly, on how the company will still care about reputation. Why the only one your side say they don't care about reputation first because law, and no, that's not the really meaning why. And as our side already gave you an example, is one, as your side saying a huge company is doing something very terrible, what will happen? As what our side told you. Wait, no. Let's say Russia and Ukraine. When Russia is also doing something morally very incorrect, what will the world do? The world do is that they will give the country, or now it will become a company. Now they will give the company a kind of let's say we will give you higher tariff, or we will need to lessen the thing we buy from you. And this, let's say Russia, they don't care about this that much, but company will care about this very much. Because why? Company, they are fully based on yeah, sure.
Companies such as Shein use child labor, and by your definition, that is morally incorrect, yet people still buy it every single day. There's thousands of Shein hauls because people still buy from Shein because they like Shein, even if they use child labor.
Okay, so there's still a problem existing, but let's say Xinjiang cotton. There's a lot of people that's in China that you see that's because it's very morally incorrect. Like they're making Xinjiang people doing a lot of things that's people think it isn't acceptable. So a lot of people say we shouldn't use it. And at the same time, yes, we need to admit that. At the same time, there's still a bunch of people that they don't really care about this that much. But at the same, if they're doing so, they're doing it in a very incorrect. And also, why are they child labor or something? Because that place is also failing economically. So our side is trying to at least make this place better. And your side say we won't get any investment or okay, so we're making this place a bit better. And the problem that your side is saying is that's the problem will still exist. But why will it not exist in your side? And also, there will still be people caring about it, and they will still get some sort of check and balance since there's still people that cares about it. Yeah, maybe not as much. And let's be clear, Nike also got criticized because they use child labor. There's also a bunch of people who care about it. It's just that now it's just that your side is only saying the part that people don't care. But actually, there's also a lot of people that do cares about it. Okay, so let's move on. So next, why would
a state even fail in the first place? Of course, the government already don't. Firstly, why would the government want to care about the state that much? If they do care, why don't they do anything? Firstly, it's probably because they don't care. And secondly, because they are not able to do anything. When you're failing, a state is failing and the country can't do anything, it means the country itself isn't able to heal itself. How is it able to heal itself? It's already economy failing. So it means they are already not good in a lot of things. So how will you? The way they are healing is, let's say they become better, so the other country invest them. They now get money so they can help others. But now, when they're already failing in the first place, they can't even help themselves. So that's when we need another kind of, which is company, to come in and then help them. At least they are starting to grow. They start to gain money, and that's when they can maybe help or maybe make things better. And you're saying it will take time, and no. Even if it takes time, you still can make any changes. And how do you make sure the government will do something? Because when now people are already all very poor, will they really care that much about that election? Firstly, let's be clear. Election is when after a lot of commercials become better, everyone is having a better life. That's when they will start, I should defend myself, so we want democracy. But what's happening in that world? The world when it's already, everyone is so poor, economic, it's failing. We will really have the time to think about, who should I elect? What should I do? Should I protest? Should I help myself? No, why would you even have, when you are not even to maintain your life, when now it's economically failing, and our first speaker will tell you what is economically failing world looks like. When it's economically failing, it's likely the society, of course, is already unstable. When you're in an unstable world, and you yourself can really make sure you don't have the spirit to care that much about that. And also, so this means, firstly, the government, of course, they're not able to even help. And why would your side think now they can help the state, and then after a few years they can help the state now? Why can they help? The only way they can is when they get new investment, right? When it's failing, it can't even get investment in the first place, and it can't develop in the first place. And nextly, they don't even have an incentive to do this, even if now they are able to. They won't really want to help because they don't really care about that place that much. So that's also why they will become an economically failing country in the first place. So next, move on. Yes, our world, it's, the citizen there might not be as free, and they might also they not be as free as the other country, but at least in the same country, they are at least now they're in the structure is becoming better. They're having a bit better life. Of course, it's not a very good life, but at least a better life compared to before. You said during a very beautiful picture. Of course, you're comparing these failing places to some very well-developed places. Yet they're not having a good life even when company comes in. But the thing is that before the company comes in, they are suffering. So the point is that we're not making it perfect, but at least we're making it better. When your side doesn't really improve, how can you even make it better? Your side isn't even getting better. It's just maintaining, staying as what it is. And your side is actually lack of how you can really help this country. The only way is just by the country itself. You want it to heal itself. On our side, at least we provide a way for it to help. And also, alas, your side is saying because it's a big company, so even if they're doing something very awful, they can still easily make it turn off, and then the other won't, and they will easily hide it. Is it true like this? So nowadays, when people it's easy to get phone to just post things online, it's actually not that hard as your side is saying to voice himself out. And I don't really think, when you already know this company is doing very terrible things, that's what your side is saying, doing a bunch of pollution and then another thing, and then the company can still become a great company. When it's already a big company, that's when they do care about their reputation more. Because the one they're facing is a customer all around the world. When they are doing this, when they are doing something that's morally incorrect in the world view, of course they won't get, a good result. Also, so based on this, I'm proud to propose.
Okay, we thank the government rep for that speech. Moving on to the opposition whip.
Is everybody ready?
So my speech will start in 3, 2, 1.
our burden in the debate as the opposition side is to prove to you, Judge, why these companies do not deserve this right to buy these charter cities, and why our solution that the government provides like plans and step-to-step guidelines in a specific time frame is so probable. So we on the opposition side has already repeatedly tell you why these cities might be economically sabotaged by these companies, right? Because obviously companies, they want power because power equals more profit. And like both sides in this debate has already agreed on, profit is what drives company the most, right? Companies will obviously want to bribe other companies that might operate within the city, or bribe these mayors or officials in these cities because they want this power. They want to hold this power where they can make their own bylaws. Our opposition side has already said, companies would want to hold power in these cities because they can have illegal activities, right? Like we already tell you, sometimes illegal activities is what brings the most profit, right? What else would give them the incentive to buy these charter cities, right? Because they want profit, and illegal activities such as making gambling or casinos legal and everything. This is what companies want because this is the quickest way to profit, which at the end of the day, both sides have agreed is what companies want, for their number one priority, right? And next, we also tell you about the exploitation of citizens. We tell you why companies would want to sabotage because companies driven by profit. No, companies are driven by profit. And like our first and second speakers already told you, maybe people citizens in these cities, they do not want to be dominated by these countries. Maybe these cities hold natural resources or something of value to these companies. And usually what will happen in a proper city, a proper country, is there are laws in place to make sure that the citizens give this permission to all these companies to be able to operate within the city, to take their natural resources, to maybe they'll cause air pollution. These companies will cause air pollution, right? And these cities, these laws created by the country, created by these cities, are what keeps these companies in check, right? So what happens now on the government side is these companies want this power to be able to operate within the cities, to keep this power to basically exploit these citizens, right? So which is why we believe that they will economically sabotage the cities. So even on the worst case, let's say, Judge, you do not buy the fact that these cities will get sabotaged by these companies. We already tell you maybe, okay, we admit fault that maybe it is the government's fault, and maybe the government is why the economy is failing in these cities, right? But we already provide you a very clear solution. We already tell you that the government has the incentive to actually provide this solution with step-to-step guidelines in a specific time frame to improve the livelihoods of these cities. Why? We tell you the incentive is because the government, obviously, the people get to elect a government, right? Despite what government side is saying, and how people won't care about who they want to elect because they're poor and starving and failing in this economically failing cities. We tell you why now it is more important than ever that these people get to choose who they want to vote for companies, because they want to, for government, because they choose who they want to represent them, to who they think will make a better life for themselves, right? So what happens now? Yes.
So you're suggesting that voting can help the things to get better? Then why would it even fail in the first time? When it's ready to fail, of course they will elect someone that's better, right? But it doesn't happen. So does it actually mean that the election doesn't really help it?
Okay, yes, we already tell you, we already bite the bullet and admit that it is the government's fault in the first place. It might be the government's fault, right? We already tell you, it might be the companies economically sabotaging. We're just telling you, even if you don't believe that, it might be the government's fault that the city is failing, which is why the government now has this obligation and this incentive to actually take the means to try to improve this city. Because if they show improvement, even if they do, maybe it's just a tiny drop in this this economy is failing, a tiny drop in this city, right? But the government, if they are able to show and prove to these citizens that they are willing to admit their fault and take the next step to provide this clear guidelines, to provide perfect steps to show these cities that they're willing to change, to make the city become better, to grow the city, right? Which is why we tell you our solution is so much better. And even then, even if you don't buy that, we already tell you all the reasons why government side, why these companies buying these cities are so bad, right? We tell you repeatedly, so government's whole entire case is based on profit-driven reputation, how companies want to gain profit, and by gaining profit, they need to maintain a good reputation. But we have already said in our first and second speeches, right? We already tell you, some companies literally don't care about their reputation. We see examples like this, right? So government side talks about how these like morally corrupt companies will get like hated on and everything, right? Because it's bad for their reputation and people won't buy from them. But we have already seen clearly this is not true, because even clothes companies such as like Shein or people that use sweatshops in these like Chinese factories, they clearly are not morally correct, and clearly the whole world knows. Yet what happens? By the day, people are still buying clothes off of Shein or off these morally like corrupt companies, because these companies don't care and these people don't care, because at the end of the day, these companies carry what they want. No. And even if we tell you that these companies, on their best case scenario, on government's best case scenario, even if these companies do care about their reputation, what happens? Like we debated about yesterday, these big corporations hold lots of power in media, they hold lots of power in this like relevant role right now, right? So what happens is we tell you these big corporations, these companies which are exploiting its citizens now, because they get to create their own bylaws, their own structure, they get to create everything, right? These companies that are exploiting their citizens and like making like illegal activities happen in these cities, what happens is these people, these citizens don't get a voice, because no matter how much they try to speak up, no matter how much they want a voice, they want to tell the world what is happening to them, it won't matter, because these big corporations are obviously power enough to mask and cover all these voices, right? Because why are these corporations so powerful? Because we have to think about how did they even acquire in the city in the first place? Because obviously, like we have told you before, cities equals power, and it's usually the biggest companies that are able to acquire these cities, because they are able to bid. They are able to bid for the most influence. They probably have the most influence, probably have the most money, which means that these charter cities are probably bought by the most powerful companies. And these most powerful companies are the companies that control the world. They control how we're thinking. TikTok, Facebook, Instagram, they control all of this. So this is why we believe that even if these companies do care about the reputation that they carry, which is so immorally bad, that the government side likes to point out is so bad. And because on the opposition side, we deliver you such a perfect and clear counter model to combat the government side. The government side's whole case does not stand, and the opposition case does stand. And for all the reasons above, we are so proud to oppose.
Okay, we thank the opposition judge for that speech. Moving on to the opposition reply.
My speech will start in 3, 2, 1. At the end of this debate, reality hits. What governments bench fails to acknowledge is that companies do not need to care about their reputations. In their ideal world, where companies are angels, where companies are people who genuinely care about their reputation and genuinely want to do better for society, we think that this is a very unfair characterization of companies. Both sides agree that companies are driven by profit. And we think that there are two reasons or groups that makes a company have to uphold a good reputation. The first reason is because of the law, right? It's a prosecution of illegal activities that scares these companies to uphold a good reputation, right? And when the law isn't there anymore in these charter cities, because companies literally are able to have their own legal and administrative system, they're able to not be prosecuted because they literally control the court, right? They can play the judges, they can do whatever they need in order to veil their illegal activities. What happens now is that the main fear of why companies have to care about reputation disappears. The second reason why companies care about reputation is consumers. It's consumers that have the luxury of choosing a product just because it has a better reputation. Because let's be honest, if you were a customer, would you care if a product was marketed as very green and recyclable and the company had a very good image, or just choose the cheaper option? I think most of us would just choose the latter. Just like how so many people all over the world order off of Shein, even when we all know that they have child labor abuse happening right there, we still order off of it because it's cheap, right? That's what most customers want. The group of consumers that they talk about are the people who are rich, are the people who have the luxury of choosing a better marketed option that has a good reputation. These are the things that government ignores in their speeches. So what's the final goal of this debate? To improve the livelihood of citizens. On government, the economy may seem like it's improving when it's only the result of the company's profits, not from the overall elevation of citizens. In reality, these citizens are being worked long, low-paid hours in sweatshops due to the lack of checks and balances. They're worse off than they were before. Our model provides direct aid to citizens and provides funding to the city instead of just handing them off to profit-driven companies. The government bench in this debate is allowing companies to take advantage of charter cities under the guise of being a savior. We tell you that even if the economy looks like it's improving, it's from the company's profit. It's from the company's profit from abusing these citizens. It's from the company's profit of being able to exploit and do whatever they want in this city. What we want is the over-elevation of quality of life for these citizens, right? We don't just want to make the companies rich, we want the citizens' economy to improve as a whole, like each and every one of them, which is how we do that in our model, where we provide funding and infrastructure from the government, who we already tell you from the start of the debate is the best actor to protect these citizens because they have their best interests at heart. So at the end of this debate, I think opposition side takes the win because government side is unable to prove why these companies will still care about their reputation even when they have almost complete control over the city. They fail to prove how they're able to improve the citizens' livelihoods as a whole instead of just feeding the companies so many profits. But we think that our side of the house protects the citizens. Thank you.
Okay, we thank the opposition for that speech. To conclude this debate, calling on the government reply.
My speech during this firstly, I'll talk about some things about what my speakers have done, and then later on talk about what the opposition side have done and why our side clearly wins this debate. So firstly, I think that their side's main argument is that, oh, governments will help these cities become better. And then why is this good? It's because this place have democracy. So you can vote for who you think can help this place improve. But our side already clearly told you from our first to second to third speaker that these peoples, they, like quoting from my first speaker, she said that this place might have democracy, but they do not have education, like our side just stated, that they do not have economy benefits, right? So they do not have education and they don't know their right. Democracy does exist here, but they do not use this right? So it is actually not standing in their side. But secondly, my third speaker also said they need these workers and then they need these workers to live so that they can use these workers. Then the worst scenario here is that these people live, but they are suppressed. But what is the matter? They're still living. Well, in the in the opposition side, they just made these people die because they do not have money. And then our side even proved that how these governments are not likely to help by my first speaker saying that these places do not have democracy so much, right? And then their argument is kind of like a slippery slope, right? Because at first they talked about how these governments might help. And then at last they give us a result. What? They said that these governments are going to make this better. Although these governments, there is kind of a small likelihood that these governments are going to help, but they didn't explain the process. They didn't tell us how this leads to the city becoming a better place. Well, our side provides a reason, right? Even if this reputation argument we lose on this, we tell you that at least they are living. You cannot just sacrifice lives because you think that the government is going to help. In the worst case in our side is that people do not have a lot of rights, right? They do not have a lot of rights, but at least they are living. And in the worst case, under their side, they do not have any improvement. People just keep dying and keep dying because they do not have the money and the resources, right? And then secondly, about the best case scenario, right? In our side, the best case is that this place is going to develop and they are having their rights. What is the best care there? Is that these governments are going to help them. But our side already proved this as wrong, as democracy doesn't happen in these places. And then these places there is still a likelihood that these places are suppressed by government. And even if that this reputation argument doesn't stand and we lose on this point. We still win in this debate. Why? Because taking risk is better than just sacrificing these lives. And it is also better than rather never developing, right? Since governments are not likely to help them. And then their main argument is just how companies are going to take advantages and how governments can help. Firstly, we already proved how this government can help argument doesn't stand. And then they didn't explain their model. They just say that, oh, our model is this government will help. And how? I still don't see how. They never explain this. And then secondly, about the taking advantage part. We told you that, yes, we acknowledge that this is sometimes true. Although it is sometimes true, but at least they live, right? So what is the road on both sides? Our sides are achievable. No matter if the people have right or not, at least they live. But what is under their side is that they do not have living people. They just sacrificing people's life. And the main goal in this debate is to protect people, right? To make this place a better place. And the first step to this is making sure that these people living in these regions live. Which is why I'm proud to say that our side should definitely win this debate.
Okay, we thank government reply for that speech. We thank both teams for this a wonderful debate. Please cross the house and please leave the room. Be back in around 20 minutes or so for the oral adjudication.
I'm just gonna close this. We don't know what he's doing with it. And when we confer, we